Hi everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earle and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. Everyone is likely to experience grief at some point in their life. Grief is difficult. It is painful, scary, and life-altering. My guest today is Teresa Delgado, a certified life and health coach who helps those who have experienced loss navigate their grief journey. While Teresa coaches in many life areas, her decision to help others through their grief comes from her own personal experience with loss. In 2006, Teresa lost her 3 small children and her mother in a car accident. As you can imagine, her grief journey has not been easy. She came frighteningly close to not surviving the pain. This is why Teresa has developed her signature grief program, One Step, One Breath, a Lifeline Through Grief. Through her program, Teresa compassionately guides her clients not only through their pain, but also toward, once again, finding purpose, peace, hope, and yes, even joy. Was your journey like? I can't imagine receiving the news that you have lost your 3 children and a mother in a car accident.
Sure. So I was a high school guidance counselor at the time. I had just finished my first year, and my parents lived about an hour away. My kids went to a different school district, county, and they got out a week before I did with my job as a counselor. So my mom was going to take them down to their place and keep them for the last week. And so that's when it happened, was on the way back. And I got the phone call about noon-ish. And worst phone call I've ever received. Obviously, I don't remember a lot about it. I remember just saying all of them and screaming, no. And I threw my phone. So that was sort of that moment. Fast forward a few days, I was at my parents' house. My dad was there, of course, my siblings. And at one point I was left alone. And they didn't leave me alone often. They were just out in the front. I had been taking a nap, so I wasn't really alone. But I woke up and I walked. They lived on a lake, on an inlet, a cove. I walked down to the end of the backyard, and they had a little boat dock. And I stood on the edge of the boat dock, and the pain was just unbearable. I thought it was going to kill me, and I just thought, I can't. I'm not strong enough. I can't live with this kind of pain. And so I stood on the edge of the dock. And I stared into the water, and I said to myself, almost like a mantra, 1 step and 1 breath, and it'll all be over. 1 step into the water, deep breath, pain is gone. And I said it over and over, but something stopped. I remember I curled up on the dock in like a fetal position, and I thought to myself, how am I going to survive? And it hit me, instead of 1 step and 1 breath being how I was going to end my life, it was now going to become how I lived my life and got through this journey. Hence the title of my program, because I really think that's what it's about. There's no magic wand you can wave over it. Grief is messy. It's hard. And there's no timeline. All we can do is sort of day at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 breath at a time. If the next day I got up and just went outside, I was surviving, and maybe a week later I went for a walk, so just tiny steps. And, it's been a lot of work over the years, but again, I've had a lot of years a lot of navigating this journey, and it never ends. I'm doing
Right.
wonderful, but grief is a lifelong process.
Was this some of the ways that God spoke to you, and has he shown you any
Mm.
miracles?
Oh gosh, yes. So, the two biggest things that stood out. One was the morning of the accident before I had left for work. My daughter got up on her. She slept with me a lot. Again, I was single. She slept with me a lot, and I said, "Bye, honey. Grammy's taking you down to whatever. I'll see you next week. I love you." And I started to walk out, and she jumped up on her knees. She says, "Wait, mommy, one more hug." So I went back and I hugged her, and my blood went cold. And I got this horrible feeling like I'm never going to see her again. And almost to the point I wanted to push her off of me, because I thought this is horrible. But of course you don't, right? And she called me. I had a 45-minute commute. She called me 3 times on my cell phone. And finally, the last time I was like, "Honey, why do you keep calling me?" She goes, "I just want you to know I love you, mommy." And literally a couple hours later, she was gone. I believe that was God just preparing me, starting the process, preparing me, giving me a heads up, giving me that moment with my daughter. And of course, I had the 2 sons. My daughter was 7. I had twin boys that were 11, Garrett and Cody, and my daughter was Taylor. The other moment was that God, I know, came to me a few weeks, maybe a month after I had a dream. And I'm not one of those woo-woo people. I am kind of woo-woo, but I don't always say, "Oh, the dream was real." This was unlike anything I had ever experienced, ever. Taylor, again, my daughter, came to me, and I always said she was my sunshine, and she was just lit up with this bright light, white light. And I said, "Taylor, oh my gosh, you're okay?" She's like, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Where have you been?" She goes, "Well, I'm in heaven." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm with God." And they knew I didn't believe in God. I didn't raise them not to. I just let them however they wanted to believe. But I said, "God, he's real." She goes, "Oh, yes, mommy, and he's wonderful." I woke up the next morning. I
Giving me
felt
goose.
like I had literally spent time with her. Unlike we all have realistic dreams. This was different. I know that God was sending me a message in a way that I would listen to. And boy, did it hit me. And it was kind of agnostic. I always wanted to, though.
Mhm.
And so it's funny, I didn't get mad at God. I actually turned to God, because I don't believe God did this. I don't believe he
Mhm.
causes these things. I think he helps us through it. He uses it to help us grow. And so I turn to him, and I almost look at it. This is a stretch, but I really feel strongly about this. If this hadn't happened, and I used to pray to God all the time, "Please help me believe in you. I don't think you're there. I think I'm talking to myself, but please help me believe in you." But nothing ever clicked with me. If this hadn't happened, I could have gone my whole life with my kids and my mother and died and possibly never seen them again. Whereas this brought me to God and saved me in that sense. And now, even though I have to go through the pain of living
Mhm.
without.
Patient to people. Not everybody knows to ask for help. Not everybody knows what to do. Some people, like I disconnected. I hid from social media, from everything, because I wanted to be
Mhm.
alone. And
Right.
everybody's willing to accept that help, but just show up and do those little things to show
Yeah.
that support.
Oh, yeah.
And just simple messages. I remember a lot of
Mhm.
my friends would just leave me voicemail saying, "You don't have to call me
Yeah.
back, but I just
Right.
want you to know that I'm here. I want you to know that I'm
Absolutely.
thinking about you."
Oh, so important. So important. And also to not, for those that know someone that are trying to help someone grieving, don't think, "Oh, well, let me be there for, at the beginning. Everybody's there." And then after time goes on, of course, their lives are going on. They're not experiencing all that pain. They forget, and they aren't checking on you. Check on your friend or family member. They still need you. I had a couple of people. One sent me anonymous cards. I think I got one once a week for a year. A year. I didn't know who sent them. They were these beautiful cards with these beautiful sentiments. Lovely. I ended up finding out who did it at the end. I pieced it together and thanked her so much. But I got to where I looked forward to those cards because they were a little bit of uplifting. It just put a little light in me and gave me hope. And then another friend refused to quit with me. I wouldn't take her calls. I wouldn't take anybody's calls. She kept on. And I was living with my brother. Gail's on the phone again. Gail's on the phone again. I don't want to talk right now. She didn't stop. She was just persistent. And finally, one day, I said that she asked me to go to a Titans football game. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go. And it was probably the stepping stone of me starting to re-enter life.
Right.
It was the first time I went out and smiled and socialized and didn't just focus on what was going on. It was a great little distraction. And from then on, like I said, that was the turning point for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was so grateful to her. So definitely don't forget your loved ones. Keep reaching out. Just be there for them. Don't give advice, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, just to reiterate, there is no right or wrong way. And, a
100%.
lot of people can be judgmental and, oh, look at that person doing this, or look at them, they're laughing. How could they possibly laugh after they just had this loss? Or vice versa. They're being too closed off and they should be over it by now, and judgmental. Don't judge. If anybody's out there that knows anybody that has had a loss, don't judge, because it's so individual. It really is.
Yes, absolutely. And again, just because someone's acting certain way in public places or carrying themselves, that doesn't mean that they're not fighting something inside or behind closed doors. And it's
Absolutely.
so important. And that's the biggest lesson I have learned the last few years is don't judge, because we have no
No,
idea. We can't read another human's heart.
no, not at all. They might be doing just what they need to do to get
Mhm.
through. And you don't know what they're doing at home when you don't see them. They could be just a wreck and
Mhm.
falling apart, and they just need that escape for survival, because we need to distract ourselves.